everyone, and welcome to One Identity's Cybersecurity Trends and Insights video series. I'm Joe Garber, VP of Marketing for One Identity, and I lead a regular series of interviews with identity security's top thought leaders so you can hear directly from them about the challenges they're facing and how you can best overcome those or similar challenges as well. Our guest today is Massimiliano Ferrazzi, who's Group CIO for Piralisi in Italy. First of all, Massi, did I get all the pronunciation correctly? Or correct?
Yes, Joe. Hi. Hi. I mean, for everyone, I mean, we can just call me Massi. That is short. I like to keep it simple, and that's I would say we can stay with that. That is easier to pronounce. Yeah.
Well, Massi, thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of your experience and about your background, of course, and your experience in identity security?
Yeah, sure. So today I'm part of the join this venture and the challenge with Piralisi, that is a global international Italian company. From I would say we have over 130 years old, and so we're running through a full complete transformation of not only from a digital point of view, but especially from a full company one. So, and in terms of the IT that is taking today an important part of this transformation, security is it's an important, and I would say it's key for today, especially within this journey today and this new project in Piralisi. Consider we coming from 130 years of history, and then especially on growing systems. So the big challenge is really to, let me say, consolidate those systems, but not only that, really making sure that we have all the accesses controlled on all those applications that we have. So imagine it's like creating layers of applications, and even legacy applications that today are still critical for business. Security and identity is a big challenge for us, especially considering that that it doesn't exist an awareness of identity management, and this is one of the biggest challenges.
Well, it's certainly great to have someone with your experience to share your thoughts. Since we have limited time, I'm going to jump in and ask you some of the questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Well, you started to address this, but kind of as part of your lead in there. But talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've been facing with respect to identity security. What are you trying to address and why?
Yeah, well, first of all, in terms of compliance visibility, so it is important for us to, as an IT organization and as a company especially, it is important to monitor and understand where people access to, and especially who has access to what. So in terms of the identity management, this is one of the biggest challenges. Especially my journey, let's say, with identity management, not today, but in the past, started on making sure of compliances, and especially we started with SAP. So we had to make sure after the auditors, that are asking us on clear segregation of duties, again, who has access to what, and that's where the journey started. So I would say, instead of, let me say, I was mentioning about identity management awareness before, in terms of before this was not even considered as part of security. So as we started in SAP in the past, this was completely focused on the application. Today, we all read on the news, and everyone, even not IT, security is a big challenge, and especially with it. One of the other part then is going through the infrastructure, let's say, and through the pure really provisioning of digital identities. That's another challenge that I would like to mention in terms of addressing, because for an IT, the more complex, let's say, not the other way around, the more simple are the user experiences in terms of using applications, in terms of connecting to systems and so on, the more complex on the background the system becomes. So the use of a tool or the implementation of an identity management program is key for simplifying. And from an IT standpoint, not only on that part, but even on provisioning of digital identities. No? So the time that we take to provision an identity or access into multiple applications, we're talking about multiple systems that grow with years, and having this kind of siloed approach, it just increases complexity and obviously increase times and requires more resources to manage, requires more procedures to manage. And for example, simply provisioning, when employees start a company, it doesn't. It takes, let's say, more than weeks to provision all the access to the system.
Well, and so, talk a little bit more about your company. What are some specific nuances you have within your organization, IT constraints, regulations, resource constraints, that presented or have presented special challenges for you?
I mean, resource. It's always an issue. No? Let's say in terms of for us and for us as CIOs and the role of CIOs today has changed during the years. No, then the CIO has to be not only, it's no more, let's say, an implementer. No, the IT is not more the implementer of systems of solutions that business is finding, but has to be a tech translator. So we need to find a way, and building, let's say, a business case for identity is not always easy. No, it goes back to what it is the awareness of identity management, the awareness of security, and explaining and justifying that. It's a big challenge. No, so the resources is the first. It's the first thing. In terms then of, I would say, then again, that we have a little bit of let me say support, and we're kind of lagging in terms of that when touching the finance part, no? And so the access to what I was mentioning before, segregation of duties in the systems. This is a requirement from a finance department in this case, and from companies. So it gets easier to justify those resources, no? And that's the thing. But on the other side, I would say also one of the constraints in this case is also let me say that I call it the IT business shadowing. No, for each department, for each function, there's an IT on the other side that is helping on implementing and let's say consulting or guiding the transformation journey with the different departments. Also, those are the we say complications that we see on the day to day.
Well, and not unique to you by any means. I've heard some of those same things from others as well. Those are just common challenges. Well, so you talked a little bit about solutions, but how did you solve some of those challenges, and what lessons did you learn along the way?
I mean, obviously, the tool, an identity management tool, helps you to simplify those things and then consolidate and then drive this program. But it's not only about the tool. So, because then the tool needs to be managed by people, and if you don't have people, and there's a resource constraints, it doesn't work alone. On the other side, then it's a full continuous alignment with business and being a business partner, being an innovator in technology, and improving the awareness, talking, communication with again with business. It makes sure that you raise up the importance and the risk in this case of not having an identity management program or a tool, and improve security. Today, security is not only a CIO or an IT issue. Today, security is it's a company issue. We again we read it's kind of, let me say, fashionable today of having cyber attacks everywhere. So that's something we need to take care. And in that case, I would say that the key of solving one of the key aspects of solving those challenges is really making aware the business of the risks in this case, and then again creating the process, simplifying the accesses in this case through the implementation of a proper program, which then ends up into having a right tool in place.
Well, so we've done some research. We did a survey recently, and we had been told that, or learned from the survey, I should say, that the average organization manages identities in 25 or so different silos. And as a result, survey suggested that organizations are looking to look at identity security a little more holistically. Is that your experience? Is your aspiration to be more holistic with identity security?
Yeah, I mean, definitely yes. Again, the thing is that identity management shouldn't feel like a catch-22. It's not a dilemma, and that's the point. And I would agree on the survey results in terms of the amount of systems and applications that you have. Obviously, it creates an identity story. And in this case, it starts from, first of all, the customer, let's say, customer experience. I mean, we're just going through a journey of integration of all countries and globalization of the systems, and we're realizing that country by country that we integrating into the global network in this case, and in the global systems, they have more than 7, 8 identities, digital identities, to access those applications. So an holistic approach is obviously it helps in having let's say, an easy to use or hard to lose security for any organization that requires protection of data in this case, and especially I would say that from an holistic point of view, simplification is key. Simplification is key, legacy elimination is key, and harmonization of systems in this case.
So you talked a little bit about what you'd need to do that. Is from a technology perspective, you kind of talked a little more about process, but from a technology perspective, what would you need to have in order to manage identity security a little more holistically?
Well, definitely the proper tool that is simplifying that, which is able to, we just said that there are people that have more than 25 different systems to manage access rights. So again, simplification is key, as I mentioned, and the right tool that is able to connect and then integrate those different systems and then or even consolidate. That is the right technology aspects that needs to be fixed.
Well, with that, I see we're close to being out of time, so I'm going to wrap up today's discussion. I'd like to thank you, Masi, one last time for giving us some excellent things to think about with respect to identity security. We certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much, and I hope to speak to you soon then.
Thanks, and thank you to all for attending this session, and I'll be looking for additional discussions like this in the near future. I'm hoping you'll join us. Thanks once again, and goodbye.